This is the Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever.
With us now is our good friend of the show, Martin Armstrong. Martin's been a while since we last spoke, and I think your fans making a little bit of noise there, but it's great to have you back on the show.
Pretty good. I mean, it's very interesting times we live in, I suppose. The old Chinese curse, right?
Yes, certainly we've been cursed in that respect, but hey, you have to wonder how much longer can this insanity go on before either we totally destroy everything or we come to our collective senses here?
Well, our computer is very interesting that it has forecasted politics over the years using the economy effectively. And if the economy goes down very hard, really, then, you always get political change, like 1929 to 32, etc. So you had Hoover being just a one-term president. All these things are economically driven. It's really not that hard. And, the people that create the polls, I think they're all being manipulated. They did that in Britain with Brexit, etc. So we just look at the economics of it. And our computer's been projecting what we call panic cycle in 22 and 2024. Now, in politics, I mean, I haven't seen that since the 1930s. So clearly, I mean, Biden does not have a mandate. Or I really should say the Democrats. It's debatable how much of this is really being driven by Biden at all. But it's really a serious agenda that has been imposed upon the United States, and it's coming from overseas. We started picking up strange capital flows in August of 19. And, by December 19, you had Bill Gates selling stock. We had reliable sources saying that by January was telling people a virus was coming. I know that there's, claims that, maybe it was leaked, etc. All I can tell you is this for sure. At the World Economic Forum, this Build Back Better slogan was already being discussed a year before COVID. So is it a virus of convenience? I mean, it's certainly not a biological weapon. The death toll is 0.028%, which is about the same as the Hong Kong flu of the 1960s. So it's not, something really dramatic, although the press has made this into some really dramatic crisis. But, the Spanish flu had a death rate of about 3% of the population. So that was, much more significant. And, you go back to the Black Plague, then it was 50%. So, we're nowhere close to being, Biden saying, this is the most serious virus we've ever had in history. That's just total nonsense. The problem is that they are using this for political reasons and to further really climate change. That's what this is all about. And you're about to see really what's on this agenda is the U.S. has been pushing Ukraine to go after Crimea, just to start a confrontation. And that would be the excuse to shut down the pipeline that's been very controversial over there to go into Europe. So it's the same strategy as shutting down the pipelines that they did in the United States. And you see gasoline prices going up dramatically, and this is really part of the agenda overall in Europe. And you just had it's a complete totalitarian state over there. Not only did France lock down again, I mean they shut down all short-term flights. You can't even fly anywhere. In Spain, I was talking to a friend over there who is in Barcelona, and he had a meeting in Madrid. And what he had to do was get permission to go to Madrid for the meeting. He had to go get an authority from the police. In Madrid, they had to go to the police to get permission to allow him to come. Then he had to go out there on the train. It was all monitored back and forth. I mean, you can't believe if you went to St. Augustine and from Miami, you'd have to call the police to say, "Please, can I go?"
And get a passport. Get a vaccine passport.
Europe is dead. I mean, I have no expectations, honestly, of ever going back again. Really. I mean, we used to hold conferences there all the time. I mean, forget it. It's a joke at this point. So I'm more concerned that we're looking at a deliberate move into a geopolitical area to further this climate change. And they're just nuts. I mean, when we look at our models on Taiwan, this should be the high for Taiwan. If I was China, and I would just wait for the U.S. to start something with Russia and then go in and take it. That's the same theory, right? Oh, well, Crimea used to be Ukraine, so we're entitled to take it, even though the people there are Russian. So isn't that the same justification for China to go take Taiwan? Used to be part of China. I mean, for that matter, Mexico could invade Texas. I mean,
you don't mess with Texas, right?
I mean, this is just insane. I mean, the people in Crimea are Russians. Historically, Crimea was always Russian. They don't even speak Ukraine. So, I mean, it's, that was part of the whole problem with Yanukovych. He came from the east, and I have a lot of friends in Ukraine, and when he would speak, he couldn't even speak Ukrainian properly. They just made a joke of it out of the time. It sounded like a foreigner being the head of your country and can't even speak the language.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's just like the Spanish here in Florida, the Cubans here. A lot of them can't even speak Spanish and have no desire to ever go back to Cuba. Just let them keep it, but there's other issues there. So when you're looking at what's happened with gold and silver, which is not a heck of a lot, and then you look at the cryptocurrencies, what is in the offing here?
Pretty much still what I have warned about before. I believe that the cryptocurrency, to a large extent, has been propagated by the governments to get people familiar with, digital currency, that somehow it's better than paper money, so they can justify canceling it. See, everybody wants cryptocurrencies. And at that stage, they're not going to allow any competition to creation of money. I mean, that's absurd. So what they will probably do at that stage is just confiscate it and say, okay, fine, we're going to give you this for our currency, and you're going to swap it out. I mean, I don't see any country historically ever allowing a competitive currency to their own. I mean, that's their power.
Hey, I always say, what are you going to do if you own Bitcoin and the government charges you with possession with intent to distribute Bitcoin, and you're facing a 5-year prison sentence?
Well, I can tell you that we had a real problem in Europe. I mean, our computer forecast Bitcoin. It's on the site, and in Europe they said, "Oh no, the banks said we can't, allow you to take in credit card payments for Bitcoin." I said, "We're not selling Bitcoin. It's just a report." Didn't matter. Anything with Bitcoin, they would not allow somebody to use a credit card. we had to shut down that in Europe, everything to the United States, so they at least could buy a report on Bitcoin. It was just insane. I mean, this is what's going on in Europe. So, I mean, if we couldn't even sell a report, I mean, is this, something similar like marijuana? Okay, fine, you legalize it, but the feds will confiscate the money if you put it into a bank. So they have piles of cash, we just live in this insane world at this point. But I think gold and silver will, tread water into early May, and then I mean, if you really look at the rally into 1980, the last real volley up to the 875 level was when Russia invaded Afghanistan. So I would expect this to be largely the same thing. Once you start seeing, this military thing. I mean, Russia's got 80,000 troops on the border. I mean, this is serious stuff. We're not talking about Saddam Hussein here, and if, I'm sorry, if I was Chinese, I would wait for that, and then I would take Taiwan. As soon as U.S. is occupied over there, you come in with a sucker punch from the opposite side. So I think that's when you're going to see the metals start to rally, and probably from May.
So you think May, huh? Well, is there
on our computers, for some reason, it has been the strongest target for the year. And the more this is shaping up, I'm concerned that it may be centering around this geopolitical issue.
Right. So what do you think it could go up to at that point?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the biggest problem with gold is that they also are tracking. I know people that are I have friends that are actually in the refining business, and they have to report every, gram of gold that comes in, where did it come from, you refined it, and where did it go. They're not doing that with silver, but they are doing it with gold. So that's why I say with the Bitcoin stuff, if they're tracking gold so carefully at this stage in the game, because they're worried that that's an alternative, you really think they're going to allow Bitcoin to just, coexist with a digital currency offered by the government? I mean, I don't see it.
Yeah, well, the answer from the cryptocurrency advocates is they can't stop it. It's distributed, it's all over the world. My reply to that has always been they know every single node, every computer that the blockchain gets replicated on. So maybe you can't stop Bitcoin, but you could stop all 10,000 of those nodes either physically or through a cyber attack, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was, probably, one of the largest market makers in gold back in the 80s. And they just walked into my office and they wanted to audit all our clients. And they came in and they said, under their interpretation, they just closed the gold window and it wasn't demonetized. So therefore, it's still money. And therefore, I was a bank. And so I had to comply with reporting on everybody that bought or sold more than $10,000. And then the guy looked at me and I said, what do you want, the keys? And he said, no, we understand you didn't realize you were a bank. I said, no, I didn't think I was a bank. They set up shop when I sold them, pulling out names of 5,000 on them, and I questioned him, and he told me, if you don't want any problems, shut up. Next day, they pulled in a tractor trailer, loaded all our records, and that was the last I saw them for 4 years. So if they can declare a gold dealer, which is why I ended up retiring. I didn't want to be a bank. I didn't like that particular thing, and they were out, auditing over 3,000 of our clients. How much did you sell? How much did you buy? That was back then. I can imagine what they're going to do today.
Yeah. So if they want to do something, they'll go and do it, and then they'll say that it's in the name of protecting us from terrorism and human trafficking and money laundering and all these things, right? And there's nothing anybody can do to stop them.
No, I mean, look, our court system is completely shot. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I told you before, in 1925, they passed the Judiciary Act, which said the Supreme Court has discretion to take cases. So the Supreme Court justice swears an oath to uphold the Constitution, but then he says, "Oh, but only if I want to." So, I mean, there is no rule of law in the United States anymore. It's gone. There's no real due process of law. I mean, I don't care what happened with the election or who would have won and who didn't. They had an absolute, right to listen to the arguments and say yes or no. Was it rigged or was it not rigged? But they just avoided the entire question, which leaves it out there festering for going into 2022.
Yeah, good question there. So you've always been saying that the market's going higher, the Dow, higher and higher. Are we at the end of the party yet? Or with all this excess liquidity, is it going to implode? What are we looking at here?
We don't see any real implosion. What you do have to be concerned about is that we are reaching our first target, which was in the 35 to 37,000 range. Okay. Our next target after that is 65. I told you that before, but that, I thought was a little bit further out by 2032. But we have to respect one thing here. Normally, you would expect a correction. However, if we are facing a geopolitical situation, you may see that correction everywhere else but the United States. Because any smart money will then move to the United States if we're looking at war in Russia, that's conventional, and you're looking at Asia. That's what made the United States, the financial capital of the world. I mean, J.P. Morgan had to bail out the U.S. when it was virtually bankrupt in 1896. By World War I, we had become the financial capital of the world, and World War II cemented it. And by the end of World War II, we had 76% of the official world gold reserves. That's why the dollar became the reserve currency, because everybody else blew themselves out. So, I mean, you have to respect if that's going to happen again, the capital is going to come here. And it's like in real estate, we have people just, bailing out of cities left and right. Down here in Florida, I mean, houses are going for 10, 15% over asking price and cash. I mean, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a realtor. Cash used to be the way to get a deal. Now he says everybody comes in with cash. It's rare to find a mortgage. So you have people coming in and buying places, million and a half for cash from New York. It's really quite dramatic. I mean, houses that were 500 grand last year are going for like $1.2 million now.
I know. I've seen it. I live down here too. It's rather shocking. And the implosion of the cities, the migration out of the cities, it's just something I never expected to see. It's almost something like biblical when you see there's a flood or an earthquake or whatever, and then everybody flees these major metropolitan areas. And then this is how empires fell way back when there would be this unbelievable natural disaster, that would destroy the capital or the main city, and then everybody fled, and that was the end of that empire. Here, it looks like all the northern cities and the Midwestern cities, and even in California and Seattle, like cities are going to die.
Well, as you know, our computer was forecasting that, but it was very interesting that the fundamentals end up coming out to verify what the forecast was. I mean, initially years ago, I said, okay, fine, we're going to see the migration from cities to the suburbs. But I thought it was more on a traditional level of just tax differences. That you looked at, Philadelphia or New York. I mean, it's ironic, but the more population you have, you should think that you're going to get a cheaper cost to government, but it goes up instead of down. I mean, it's like running a business completely opposite. I mean, so their totals have declined because they restrict people from going in, so then they raise them 10%. I mean, it's just like, so if business is bad and you're in a local store, you usually have a sale. They go the other way.
Yeah.
Let's raise the prices so we can still make what we used to make before.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that what the computer had forecast is this public to private wave. Historically, it always happens, as you said. Traditionally, it was over taxes. I mean, this time, it's still probably going to be over taxes. That's going to be the end result. But it's been, accelerated because of this COVID lockdown stuff. It's just crazy. I mean, I had, theater tickets for, designated seats for Broadway. I bought them for a year, and so what? I never got to use any of them. Just going out the window. Then I get a letter. Gee, would you like to do that for another year? Oh, gee, thank you very much. No.
Yeah, just toss your money out. Yeah, I've done that one before. Yeah, well, you wrote an article about a while ago, I think it was last month or the month before, about the financial capital of the country shifting from New York to Miami, and maybe more particularly to Palm Beach, because they might be in Miami, but the real money's in Palm Beach. Nothing that you see is going to stop that trend, is it?
No, I mean, I had a friend who called me on the phone, and he was over here in Tampa. He said, gee, I'm down here. Why don't we go out to dinner? I said, okay, fine. I thought he was just visiting. I mean, he was with one of the top 3 investment bankers in New York. And so we went out to dinner, and he said he moved here. I said, you moved? He says, yeah, we all work remotely, so why should I stay up there? And he got a valid point. I mean, he's one of the top guys in, in mergers and acquisitions. If it's all done by phone, you can't go visit people anymore. And you don't bother to go into the office, then why stay up there and pay all those exorbitant taxes? And they're moving here because there's no income tax.
And pretty soon, lawyers will not have, traditionally lawyers, service businesses all had to stay in New York. Lawyers, because, hey, that's where everything was, and the courts. Now you can attend a hearing on a Zoom call. Before long, they'll probably be doing trials by teleconferencing. So you won't even need to go to court anymore physically. You'll just do it from your office. And who cares anymore? There's just no overriding need. And we've been heading that way for so long. I mean, my daughter works for a major tech company, one of the top 3. And she's going to find out this week if she ever has to go back to the office again or can work from home or remotely for good. I mean, all these companies will just flee the city because who wants to pay 15% taxes between New York State and New York City? You have to be crazy to stay there.
Plus, they're raising the property taxes. So, I mean, I don't know what you do with all the buildings up there that nobody's in.
Yeah, well, maybe that's
Only about 8% of the people have returned to their jobs in New York City, actually working in an office.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty scary. So the way things are going to have to change. There's only so much money that the government can print up and redistribute to these failing cities. So what about inflation here, Martin? What are we seeing?
It's finally starting to catch up, and what I've pointed out, I know that the dominant theory has been, oh, you increase the money supply and that creates inflation. It's been proven absolutely wrong. I mean, they've had the central banks basically dumping money out, and inflation didn't take place because they're only looking at it in this one-dimensional level. But effectively, if you have no confidence in the future, are you going to go spend everything you get? You start saving. And there's reports even from Australia. The cash in circulation has increased, but the spending does not. Same problem in Europe. So, what I think the key is that when people start seeing that it's now cheaper to buy today than it is, to wait for tomorrow, that's the key to inflation. And you're starting to see it in food prices, lumber. I mean, it's going crazy. I mean, everybody's expanding their houses and stuff, just working from home. Construction. I mean, good luck finding a contractor around here in the Tampa area. Everybody's booked. A lot of them aren't even taking jobs anymore. So the inflation is already starting. And I think you're going to see this, as I've warned before, that the computer is forecasting this wave would be inflationary in commodities, but on shortages. Now, when we put out that forecast like 5 years ago, I mean, obviously I didn't anticipate COVID, but shortages, okay, this is what it's coming up with. I didn't understand the fundamental at that point in time, but if you look at what they've done now with this COVID stuff, and they've shut down, the supply chain in many areas. I mean, I said before, I bought a Samsung refrigerator in December, and I had to wait till the end of March to get it. And I asked, can I just get one from the floor? We don't sell them off the floor. That's all we have. I said, what's the delay? They said, oh, well, the chips come from Thailand. So, I mean, the supply chain is all over the place. The same thing with lumber. A lot of it comes from Canada. But if you block the trade with Canada, COVID, nobody can move, then obviously everything is going to jump up in price. Farmers were, plowing under crops. I mean, there are a number of them that, even on YouTube, he had to kill like 30,000 chickens because he couldn't bring them to market. So this is fulfilling what our computer's been projecting all along, that this would be an inflationary wave into 2024, but backed upon shortages rather than just speculation.
Yeah. Well, interesting times ahead. We're definitely living in interesting times. If you want to find out more, go over to armstrongeconomics.com and you can subscribe there, but definitely sign up for Martin's daily newsletter. It's must reading. Martin, it's really interesting to finally see a lot of these things you were talking about, like Dow 35,000 coming to fruition. Gold prices probably heading higher, especially with the war drums beating around the world. You got to wonder, we've already seen China basically neutralize Hong Kong, just make it another province. Freedom's dead there, and probably soon to happen in Taiwan. I have no doubt. I don't see the United States going to war to save Taiwan, even though there's a lot of posturing going on. But I guess we're going to find out in the not too distant future, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, right now the Democrats are focused more on this climate change stuff, and the object is to stop the pipelines from Russia into Europe, and that's the whole gist of really what's behind it. But I think it's going to turn into something a lot more serious than they expected.
Yeah, well, that's well, we don't even need to talk about politics because we all know what that's about. And like you said, the economics always drive the politics eventually, and that's why I got into Financial Survival Network, because I knew that the politics would, like you say, follow the economics, follow the money. That's what it's about. Any questions for Martin, just send us an email. I will forward them off to him, I promise you, and get you an answer. And make sure you sign up for our newsletter, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Martin, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Glad to see you're doing okay.
All right.
The Financial Survival Network.